Hey guys, it's Vicky, and today I'm here to share with you my reading goals for 2020. But first, I want to go over my 2019 goals and kind of see how I did for the year, and then see which goals I want to carry over into 2020 and try to do again, because there are a few. And yeah, just kind of make my reading goals for 2020. So yeah, let's go ahead and get started. So in 2019, my first goal was to read 50 books. And if I complete the 3 books I'm working on right now, which I should, I will have read 95 books in 2019, which is a personal record for me, and I cannot believe I read that much. Like, I used to hear of people reading 100 books a year and think oh my gosh, I'm never gonna do that. And then here I am, I read a lot this year. So yeah, I definitely made that goal. The second goal that I made was to read 3 classics, but they could not be any of the books in the Anne of Green Gables series, because that was a separate goal. And I did do that technically. I maybe kind of cheated a little bit. The ones that I counted as the 3 were The Jungle Book, I Am Legend, because I think that that's a horror classic, right? And Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. So I don't know if they are technically classics, but to me, I classified them that way. So I kind of made that one. The next goal was to read 4 Stephen King books, and yeah, I didn't meet that goal. I only read 3. I read Elevation, I read The Tommyknockers, and I read The Institute, so didn't quite make that goal. My next goal was to finish the Anne of Green Gables series, and I am currently reading the last book in the series. So I'm going to finish it, and that means I'm going to finish the series, and I'm going to complete that goal, so that's really exciting. Another big goal that I had in 2019 was to read the books from my shelves. I don't accumulate a ton of books, but I mean, I have about 80 unread books on my shelves. And so a goal in 2019 was to kind of keep it there. And I went back through, and of the books that I read, more than half were off of my shelves. And I think that's pretty good. I feel like I completed that goal. And I started the year with about 80, and I have now ended the year with about 80. So I have accumulated and have ended up with the same amount of books on my shelves, but I have been reading them, which is a good thing. And then I had wanted to do 2 rereads in 2019. The first one was The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton, and I did reread that and really enjoyed it. It was a 5-star for me. I loved it. And then my second reread is Little Women, which I'm currently reading. I actually have it right here. I am 85 pages in, so I will complete that by the end of the year, and obviously I'm loving it. It's one of my favorite books, so yeah. Another issue that I kept having with my reading was I would completely forget about my Kindle. But I was continuing to buy books, cheap Kindle books, and then I had a ton of them on my Kindle that I wasn't reading. So I had a goal to read at least 3, and I read 3. I read I'm Thinking of Ending Things by, is it Ian Reid? I read, what was the second one? See, I didn't write these ones down. Oh, Come Closer by Sarah Gran, there we go. And then The Enchanted by Renee Dunfeld, which I just read. I've just completed it 2 days ago. So I did complete that goal. Also for 2019, I wanted to do a Tbr Jar challenge, and in the way that I did it was I kind of gave myself different prompts. Instead of just putting book titles in here, I put different prompts like read a book by a female author, read a nonfiction book, read a Stephen King book, and the like. And I did complete that. It was a bit of a struggle though, because there were definitely months where I already had a lot of books planned and I didn't really want to pick from my TBR jar and that sort of thing. So it worked. I completed it, but I'm tweaking it a little bit for 2020, so I'll get into that in a little bit. And then the last thing that I wanted to do in 2020 was I always like to pick a big book to read for the year, and this year's big book was The Pillars of the Earth by Ken Follett. I read it over the summer. It ended up being a 4-star read, so it wasn't quite as amazing as I thought it was going to be, but it was still a really good book and I enjoyed it and I'm glad that I read it. Okay, so now going into my 2020 goals. A lot of my goals are similar or the same because they just kind of worked for me and I just wanted to keep them going. So the first goal for 2020 is to read 60 books. I figured since I read so many books this year that I could up it a little bit, challenge myself a little bit more. And I think on average I read about 5 books a month, so I should not have a hard time reaching 60. I do want to try to read 3 classics again because I just think it's a good thing to challenge myself and try to read literature that has stood the test of time, as difficult as it sometimes is, because I just think it's important as a reader to do those sorts of things. And then this year, I don't quite know why I'm doing this, but I want to try to read 5 Stephen King books. So my goal in 2019 was 4, and I didn't meet that, but now I want to make it 5. So I don't know. We'll see how that goes. I think the reason is because I just want to push myself to really get through his stuff. I have 6 of his books on my unread shelf, so that would be great if I could read all of those. That'd be awesome. Okay, so then I also, speaking of my shelves, I want to read from my shelves, which I have been really good at. I feel like, especially in the last few months, and what's definitely helped me with that is using Overdrive and Scribd to listen to audiobooks of books that I own. I definitely am getting through them quicker that way, so I'm going to continue that trend in 2020. Also in 2020, I want to go ahead and read at least 3 Kindle books, maybe more. I really should up that one to 5, but we'll see. We'll see. I think 3 is a good number. I have a lot of good books on my Kindle and I forget about them. So I definitely need to make them more of a priority. So I want to go ahead and bring the jar challenge back in 2020 because I do think it is a fun way to kind of mix up the TBR a little bit. And I like doing the prompts like I did in 2019. That worked really well for me because it still gave me some breathing room in terms of like what book to choose for the prompt. So what I'm going to do though instead of making myself feel like I have to pick a book or a prompt every month, I'm just not going to do that. And I'm going to put more prompts in than 12 because I did 12 in 2019. I'm going to put probably double that in here. That way if I have months where I'm not really sure what to pick, I can pick more than one. And then if I have months where I already have a full TBR and I don't want to do the jar, then I don't have to. So I'm kind of just like giving myself a little bit more slack with the TBR jar. And I'm going to continue doing the fun prompts. I'm going to add some different ones that I've seen other booktubers doing for their TBR jars. Because I think it's just a funner way to utilize this sort of thing. And then as you guys know, I have in 2019, that towards the end of the year, I was starting to try to reread the Goosebumps books. I did a whole vlog about it. I haven't read any since that vlog. That was back in October, I believe. So I want to make sure that in 2020 I read some of those books and I keep that going. So I would like to read 5 Goosebumps books in 2020. That will not be hard to do. They are super short. They go quick. And yeah, I don't think I'll have a problem getting through 5 Goosebumps books. Okay, so then I also want to do some rereads in 2020. There are 3 books that I want to try to focus on rereading for one reason or another. The first one is a classic, and that is Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. I have not read this book since, I want to say it was the first year of college, and it was my first time reading it then. For some reason, we never read it in high school, and I enjoyed it then, so I want to see how I feel about it now. It's very gothic. It has some pretty, if I remember correctly, unlikable characters. I don't remember Kathy being a likable character. And even Heathcliff, I don't remember. I don't remember. So that's why I need to reread it. So yeah, this is one that I definitely want to reread. The next one is one of my all-time favorites. And so I feel like it's time to revisit it. And that is Angela's Ashes by Frank Mccourt. I first read this book in high school. I want to say junior year, maybe senior year. And it's been one of my favorite books ever since, but I haven't read it ever since. So I think it's time to revisit this one as well. and see if it still holds up. And then my last reread is kind of a tentative one because it's a big one. But I might be rereading this. I'm not promising anything, but I'm thinking about rereading The Stand by Stephen King because this is one I consider one of my favorite books by Stephen King, and it's been quite a while since I read it. Bobby and I might actually buddy read this because she has never read it, so it gives me a good excuse to reread it. So we're not set in stone. We're thinking about it. But yeah, so this is definitely a maybe, but one that I do want to reread eventually. And then lastly, I want to have another big book to read in 2020. And I know you're thinking, Vicki, you just held up The Stand, like that's a big book. But I want to read a big book that is new to me. So the one that I am going to try to complete in 2020 is The Terror by Dan Simmons. This one is, I think it's like almost 800 pages, it's like 760 something. So it's over 700 pages, which to me, that's a big book. If it's over 700 pages, it's big. I loved Summer of Night by Dan Simmons, and I've been wanting to read more of his stuff, and I've heard amazing things about this story. So yeah, who knows? This might be a good one to read early in the year, right in the wintertime, because of the setting. Because it takes place, I think, in the Arctic. So yeah. And then the last thing I want to do for 2020 is something new. And I did a video about it a little while back where I talked about how I want to try tracking my reading more in 2020. I'm going to be utilizing my Happy Planner and having an area in here where I am tracking my reading, like my page count every week and like what I'm currently reading and when, like specifically, I'm completing books and things like that, just because I think it'll just be kind of fun to do. I've always used Goodreads. I'm going to continue to use Goodreads, but I also want like a physical copy of my reading journey for the year. So I will be doing that as well. And thank you to all of you, by the way, in that video that I posted about the reading tracker. So many of you guys gave me some great ideas and talked about how you tracked your reading. So thank you so much for those comments. I definitely did take them into consideration when deciding how I was going to do my planner. So I really appreciate that. All right, guys, so those are my reading goals for 2020 and a recap of how 2019 went. I think it was a really good year. I completed a lot of my goals, and I'm really excited to continue trying to complete those same goals in many cases in 2020. So please let me know down below if you kind of set reading goals for yourself. What kind of goals do you set? Do you get really specific, or do you like to just set a number of books read? I would love to hear what you guys do in terms of trying to challenge yourself as readers, because I think it's important and I think it's fun. So other than that though, I hope you guys are having a great week, and I'll talk with you very soon. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.